Well, listeners, we are starting our look at this year's Monster Fest by taking a look at a brand new Aussie film called Fear Below, of course, from director Matthew Holmes, who's been making some great films over the last few years, and there's certainly no stranger to Monster Fest. So to tell us a little bit about Fear Below, we've actually got Matthew on the phone right now. So welcome to the program, mate.
Yes, hello. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Now, mate, I've got to start off by saying, how do you feel about having Fear Below as part of this year's Monster Fest?
Look, it's always a pleasure to be part of Monster Fest. They're one of the best film festivals in Australia, and they've always been supportive of what I've been doing. And they run a great festival, so I was absolutely chuffed to be invited back. It's my third film with them now in a row, and yeah, I hope it will be. I hope there'll be many more to come.
Definitely. I remember your first film being part of Monster Festivals way back in 2016 or 2017, I think, with the legend of
Yeah,
Ben Hall. And I remember
certainly was.
you were so nervous before that screening. How do you feel with Fear Below? Do you feel more confident now, or how do you feel knowing that horror fans and genre fans are about to get a look at this film?
Oh, look, I think as you do it a few more times, you get less nervous. But I think I had a lot personally for me. I had a lot riding on the Legend of Ben Hall because it was a project that was very personal to me and very near and dear to my heart. So I think I had that. Whereas with Fear Below, I'm a little bit more. I don't know. I'm a bit more confident with it because it is a genre film and something that's a bit more fun and it's a monster movie, so I guess I don't have that huge personal attachment the way that I did Ben Hall because I carried that film for so long. So it's sort of a bit of a different beast in that way.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what people think of it. I mean, a bit of a fan of the monster genre myself, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what people think of this one because we did set out to make something quite different. So we'll see what they think, see if they like it.
was it that love of monster films that kind of sparked Fear Below, like the idea behind it, or where did that idea first come from?
Well, it really came from a producer. One of the producers on the film encouraged me to write a shark film because he said I can always sell a shark film. So the challenge was, how do I write a shark film that I would be happy with, the kind of shark film that I would watch? Because there's very few shark films that I do actually enjoy, and so I sort of had to set myself that challenge. How do I write one that doesn't fall into the trappings that so many of the shark genre films do fall into? And so it was just about solving that puzzle. And once me and Greg solved that puzzle and we came up with this really unique spin on the genre that kind of blends another genre with it, it all fell into place pretty quickly.
I guess young writers out there are probably wondering, how do you do that? Because of course, so often these days, and I find it's really big here in Australia, where when you go to pitch a film or you go to pitch an idea, the first question you're asked is, what is it like? When you would expect that question would be, how is it different to everything else? But how do you go and make a shark film where we do see two or three every year? How do you go about making it different? What was those initial meetings like when you sat down to work on this and make it different?
Well, it was a few steps. Number one, I had to come up with a better reason as to why people would keep going into the water if there was a shark there.
Yep.
Because this is the foundational problem with most shark films, as I see it. They simply draft scenarios where characters get stranded, and then whether they're in a cave, a shopping centre, the middle of the ocean, whatever it is, they simply strand characters in a situation, and then a shark comes along, and then the rest of the movie is just those characters reacting to this shark that is trying to get them. And I find that pretty dull, and it's pretty hard to sustain a 90-minute story when really the characters have no agency of their own. They're not doing anything. Because really, if you don't want to get eaten by a shark, just don't go in the water.
Yep.
So I had to just figure out a way to give a very good reason as to why my characters would keep putting themselves into the water. So I had to come up with a reason that would force them in. And that was sort of the way to solve that problem. The other way was to set it in a different time period than we've ever seen a shark film before. I don't think anyone's made a film about a shark set in the 1940s before. And I also wanted to change up the location and the kind of shark it was. We have done bull sharks before, but rarely do we see bull sharks in freshwater river environments. And most shark films are set in the ocean. So I thought, well, this just ticks so many points of difference. You know, the period setting, the type of shark, the type of location, and the kind of story that gets our characters into the water.
You mentioned before that the producer said to you that I can always sell a shark film. What do you think it is about audiences and shark films? Because, like you said, we always seem to have shark films around, whereas with every other kind of creature feature, we kind of see them come and go. Like we had a time when everybody was making vampire films because of Twilight, and it was werewolves before that. But why do you think that shark films always stay popular?
I think it's because of the cultural impact of Jaws is still being felt today. It was just such a juggernaut and now such a revered classic. But I think because it's a shark, that film really tapped into our social, primal, subconscious thing, you know, about being scared of sharks. So I think it's just a shark is something that everybody can feel a bit afraid of. You know, rightly or wrongly, everyone is scared of being eaten by a shark, and I think that's the thrill that everyone can tap into, whereas maybe a zombie or a vampire or some other abstract kind of alien or something, that's a bit abstract, whereas I think a shark is very primal and it's probably coded into our DNA or something to be afraid of crocodiles and sharks, things like that. So that's probably why, I think. And I think everybody genuinely is looking for the next Jaws. Like, I think audiences are all hoping that this shark film will give them what Jaws gave them.
Yeah.
I don't think any film will ever live up to that, ever. But I think everyone still is looking for the same hit, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And once you had that general idea and the story there, how did you go about casting? Did you do a wide open search for a cast, or were they people that you already had in mind for the different roles?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, actually. I knew that I wanted Arthur Angel as Ernie. I wrote the film with him in mind, so he was very much cast in my mind from the very beginning. Same with Jacob, who plays Jimmy. I had very much had them in mind, but the other characters, more or less, it was a bit of a process of discovering actors that I've never met or worked with before, and you know, people like Jake Ryan. I was aware of his work, and he wasn't initially who I thought, but again, we had some conversations, and he brought some really great ideas, and he brought a presence to the film that was you know, very imposing and so on, and so it just seemed to make sense. But the casting process was a bit of a surprise because it was a bit of a mixed bag. We were, especially with the lead character, we tried every major Australian actress that we could for the role of Clara, and it was just turned down by everybody. So we decided to go to the UK, and the first actress that I saw on a list was Hermione, and when I saw her picture, I just thought, that's her. That looks like the Clara that's always been in my mind, and she turned out to be, you know, just fantastic. So it was a bit of a strange process casting this one.
Definitely. So tell us a little bit about the shoot itself, because of course this is very different to what you have done in the past, especially with the amount of water and water sequences and things like that. Tell us a little bit from a filmmaking point of view how that was different for you this time around.
Well, I'm used to shooting movies outdoors, so, you know, Ben Hur was on location, The Cost was on location, so was Twin Rivers, so I felt pretty comfortable being outdoors. However, this time we were dealing with water, and we were dealing with a river. And unfortunately, when we started shooting this, the river that we were filming on, the Murray River, it actually flooded. On the week that we were filming, the banks broke, and the biggest flood in nearly 30 years came through, and every one of our locations was completely drowned out, and we actually had to evacuate the town that we were all based in. So that put us way behind schedule, way over budget, and we had to find another location way up in Queensland. And so we were absolutely hit with the elements making this film. So this was easily the most stressful film I've ever worked on because of that. It was an absolute nightmare from a production point of view because of these challenges of working on location. Everything changes when you're dealing with a river, a natural body of water. It's just so unpredictable. So that was very, very challenging. And of course, water slows everything down. But I knew that that if we were to try to do our underwater stuff in water, that I would never be able to afford it. So we actually shot a great deal of the movie in a dry soundstage, but we simply faked it and made it look like it was underwater using a process called dry for wet, which is a process of using lighting and smoke and certain kind of camera tricks to make it look like we're actually filming underwater when we're not. And that worked really, really well for the river environment, because a river is very dirty. You can't see very, very far, if at all, when you're under river water. So that actually really worked in our favour. So we just tried to take all the things that were the things that you normally get in a shark film, and we thought we don't have to worry about that because we're in a river. We don't have to see we don't have to see 100 meters into the ocean. So we just had to get very creative with how we did things.
Now, I have to ask, because this question we regularly ask people who film in water, because we once had a director on this show confess to the fact that they accidentally knocked a red camera into the ocean when they were filming. What kind of accidents did you have filming on water? Did you lose any equipment at all?
No, actually, we were very fortunate. We didn't lose any electronics. To that, we did have a pool broke in one of our studios, and that spread water across the ground, and I think some lights got damaged. But that really wasn't a big deal. So we had little accidents like that you have along the way, but no, we didn't lose anything or anyone under the water. So we were quite fortunate in that aspect. So thank goodness we didn't need any more bad luck on this film. We'd already been hit by the weather so badly. I'll tell you what we did get. All of our unit trucks got stranded in about 3 feet of water in the location because of the floods.
Yeah.
The amount of rain and water that came through, and we had all our trucks were stranded out in a field. We looked like a rice paddy.
Yeah.
So that was about the only thing that we lost underwater, but yeah, we had to wait for it to dry up before we could move the trucks out.
How do you find another location so quickly? Because that's something, like, depending on where you get your film funding from and things like that can be impacted by all of that. How did you go about finding another location, especially in a different state, so quickly?
It was an absolute mad scramble like you wouldn't believe. We just had to pull up our stumps, and we just contacted all the funding bodies, told them our situation, and there were a lot of people who were willing to help us, and we were given a bunch of places to visit, and it was just me and my DOP hitting the road, driving around, looking at all these different places, desperately looking for another location. In fact, we were so close to pulling the pin on the film because we couldn't find one. And in fact, we had made the decision to pull the pin.
Yeah.
Because we just couldn't find anything. And we'd made the decision to pull the pin, and then we were about to drive home, and I said, on the way home, let's just swing by this little lagoon that was on our map that we didn't get to see the day before. Let's just swing by on the way home. And we swung by it 20 minutes after making the decision to pull the pin, and then we found it and we went, this is great, this is perfect. this is exactly what we need. So I quickly rang back up and said, don't do anything. I've found the location. So we came right down to the wire. And this new location turned out to be even better than any of the other locations we had.
Definitely.
So it was a weird, terrible, stressful way to get to the perfect location. So go figure.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that you were able to find that location, because the result has been a very, very special film indeed. And I guess I have to ask as well, because not everybody's going to be able to get to these screenings at Monsterfest. What are the plans for Fear Below after Monsterfest?
Look, to be honest, I don't know a lot. That's really up to our Australian distributor, Studio Canal. So I'm waiting, like everybody else, to see what plans they have. But I would encourage everybody, if you want to see this on the big screen, don't take the risk. Go see it at Monsterfest, because it might be your only opportunity to see it on the big screen. Because you just never know. You never know how these things are going to go. You don't know what's going to go to theatre, what's going to go to streaming. So get along, support a great festival, and go see it this coming weekend and the following weekend in Melbourne.
Definitely, yeah. We will have all of those dates and times and where you can grab those tickets from on the subcultureentertainment.com website as well. And I guess, Matthew, to finish off, what would you like to say to people who are heading along to Monsterfest to see Fear Below? What would you like to say to them before they see the film?
Look, I really want them to enjoy it. I hope that the points of difference are something that make it feel fresh. And just as they're watching it, please understand the blood, sweat, and tears and anguish that my very, very brave crew and cast went through to make this. It's beyond what people will ever understand. So just know a lot of very good people slogged their guts out to make this film. So we hope it's worth it, and we hope they enjoyed it.